Oh my god, it's tangled. With all of our components installed, all we need to do now is plug everything in. First, we'll connect the ATX power cable. This 24-pin cable can be run to the back of the case, up the side, and then back out to the main chamber next to the plug. Make sure the clip is pointed away from the motherboard when you're installing it. Next up is the CPU power cable, which is a 4+4 pin connector already attached to the power supply. Run this cable to the back of the case and then up to the top right corner of the right side of the case. Plug it into the 8-pin power connector on the motherboard and push the excess cable to the back of the case. After the ATX power and CPU power plugs are connected, go back into the power supply box and grab 2 of the modular cables, one with 4 SATA connectors and one with the PCIe connectors. Take the PCIe power cable and plug the 8-pin connector into the power supply. Feed the cable out to the back of the case and then up to the first available hole. Use the 6+2 pin to connect it to the graphics card. Plug the 6-pin side of the SATA cable into the power supply and feed the rest of the strand out to the back of the case. For now, leave it hanging, and we'll connect it to the hard drive when we install that. The Corsair Lighting Node Pro also comes with a software-controlled USB connection. Take the USB cable and plug it into the LED controller. Run the USB end of the cable to the end of the chassis and above the motherboard so that you can plug it in along with the rest of the other cables. Remember that drive bay we put aside? We're going to reinstall it and attach the PSU shrouds before we attach the rest of the cables. This will ensure a neat and clean interior chassis. First, replace the drive bay to the bottom of the case. Next, replace the power supply shroud. Next, take the plastic hard drive bay shroud and replace it to the case where it was.
Use the thumb screws to secure the 3.5-inch drive bay and shrouds to the case.
Now, next part is tricky. What you need to do is pull all of the cables at the bottom of the case up through the 2 holes through both shrouds. Start by plugging in the front panel audio connector, all the way to the right and the bottom.
Connect the front panel audio, switches, and USB 3 ports to the motherboard, in addition to the Corsair Lighting Node Pro's USB 2 plug. You can use your motherboard's owner's manual as a reference for plugging in these cables.
With the main power and case switches connected, now we'll start plugging in our RGB LED lighting and our fans. Plug the top fan into the CPU OPT port, located above the memory sockets on the motherboard. Next, plug in the CPU fan into the CPU fan port on the motherboard. Feed 2 out of the 3 cables from the fans in the front to the back of the case. Leave those hanging for now.
At this point, connect the rear fan cable to the nearest fan port on the motherboard, and connect one of the 3 front fan wires to the plug at the bottom of the motherboard.
For the last 2 fans, we'll need a splitter, so we got a Phanteks 2-way fan splitter. Plug the splitter into the motherboard and feed it out to the hole directly next to it. Connect the 2 remaining fan cables to the fan splitter, and voila! All of your fans are now plugged in. Next, connect all of the RGB LED strips together. You can use extensions to reach the other light strips if you have difficulty connecting them.
Once your RGB light strips are daisy-chained together, connect one end of the strand to the Corsair Lighting Node Pro controller. Connect the 3 additional RGB LED fans to the Corsair fan hub using the 4-pin plugs.
Finally, connect your RGB fan and RGB lighting controllers to the power supply by using the SATA connectors.
Connect the hanging SATA power plug to the hard drive, followed by the SATA data cable from your motherboard box. Then, plug the other end of the data cable into an available SATA port on the motherboard.
Now's the time to go over your cable management and try to tie down any loose cables that might get in the way or obstruct fan blades. Next, we're going to close it up, install Windows, make sure we have all the latest updates, and enjoy some games.